Welcome to the fourth branch program, the place for common sense. Today is Tuesday, July 16, 2019. I am MD. If you've been here before, thank you for your participation. It makes the journey a little bit lighter, a tad more bearable. If you're here for the first time, once again, welcome to the fourth branch program. In 60 seconds, we will give you the world. Live from New York City, at the top of the hour, every weekday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The fourth branch presents discussions, debates, commentary on social, political issues, current events, sports, entertainment, religion, education, science, and every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. for a full presentation on controversial issues such as abortion, homosexuality, war on blacks. Are Republicans dumber than Democrats? Information which might irritate you, make you cry, make you laugh, but above all, will make you smarter. Join us every time. It is the right thing to do. It is the only way to keep your sanity in a world of chaos, hypocrisy, immorality, and deception. Welcome to Common Sense. Once again, welcome to the fourth branch program. The fourth branch program is not associated with any political party, and we at the fourth branch do not have any political agenda or aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to perfect the union, and in order to do so, we have to remove the biggest obstacle of all, ignorance, such the importance of ridding society of ignorance. JFK said that the ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of us all. Today, we take a kind of a different approach. Every day we read the Mueller report, at least a section of the Mueller report, and we are at the point where we're making progress reading volume 2, but we take a very different, we changed the format a little bit. We are going to address an important topic, and it comes to the surface not because the topic ever went away, but because something just happened. Donald Trump tweeted, I guess you could have guessed that it's about Donald Trump, could you not? Tweeted that in regards to the 4 Democrat congresswomen newly elected in the 2018 midterm election. So interesting to see progressive Democrat congresswomen who originally came from countries whose government are a complete and total catastrophe. The worst, I'm quoting Donald Trump here, the worst, most corrupt and inept anywhere in the world. In parentheses, if they even have a functioning government at all. Now, loudly and viciously telling the people of the United States, the greatest and most powerful nation on earth, how our government is to be run. And on Sunday, he tweeted, why don't they go back and help fix the broken and crime-infested places from which they came? This is the President of the United States. Now you could be shocked. A lot of people express anger, they tweet back, they express, they aghast, they feel, gee, this is America we're living in. That would be funny if it weren't for such a serious matter. I'm not certain I fall into the category of people who are shocked. In fact, this is nothing shocking to me. Now, a number of Republican legislators, those who have steadfastly supported, defending, and shielded Donald Trump, they come and make some statement. They under pressure to make some statement to condemn that, what Donald Trump tweeted. It was like an uproar. A few, not all, but a few Republicans came out to condemn. But at the same time, a few Republican legislators, we're not talking about people on the street, legislators also came out to defend Donald Trump. This is racist. This is not racist. How could that be racist? Now, I'm going to try to see if I can find a few of those tweets for you. First, well, not tweet, a few of the reaction for you in terms of what Republicans think that the tweet about. Now, as I mentioned, a few people defended Donald Trump. In fact, the Chief of Staff, Vice President Chief of Staff Mark, whatever his name is, Mark Short, tweeted, well, actually, he was responding to reporters on Monday, yesterday, that those tweets were not racist at all. Mr. Trump has an Asian woman of color in his cabinet. It's not difficult to recognize racists. In the program that we usually have on Saturdays that talks about racism in America, it's very easy to recognize racism. It's very easy to recognize racists. Now, they have a sign on the forehead. Suffice to spend 5 minutes with any white individual, they don't have to tell you they're not racist. You would know very quickly whether that individual is racist or not. Because telling me you're not racist doesn't make you not racist. Of course, it doesn't make you racist either, but your action, your words, when it comes to putting substance behind those words, would tell me exactly whether you're racist or not. Now, Mark Short said that, oh, this is not a universal statement that he's making. He's making it about a very specific, pretty much the individual member of Congress that I think I said most things that she's most unhappy about in the United States. Short later. But maybe Short did read a tweet. Let me read it for Short once again. Quote, why don't they go back? Why don't they, as far as I know, they doesn't refer to an individual. Why don't they? And also in the tweet refer to these places. So of course he couldn't possibly referring to one individual. And on top of the tweet it said progressive Democrat Congress women. If he was talking about one individual, he would have said Congress woman, not women. Now, that was Mark Short. Mark Short is Chief of Staff for Vice President Mike Pence. Now, Pat Toomey is a Republican. He didn't like what Trump said. He said President Trump was wrong to suggest that 4 left-wing Congress women should go back to where they came from. Those people are American citizens. As a matter of fact, 3 of those 4 people that Trump talking about were born right here in America. So where exactly should they be going back to? Lindsey Graham, of course, is buddy with Trump since John McCain has passed. He said that, well, I think the president should aim higher. And those people, those women that the president is referring to are American citizens who are duly elected. So as you can see, even the people that come out that are put up to condemn what Trump said, they all kind of trying to wiggle their way around and not say exactly what it is for. Now, I said earlier, it would be funny. It would be funny if it weren't for something so important. And the reason I said that is because I don't know if Democrats or if the public, if the rest of the American population have caught up with the Republican Party. In August of 2017, that's 2 years ago, I published an article that says hatred is not a right. Now, a few days prior, August 12, 2017, Heather Heyer was killed, rammed by a car, driven by a neo-Nazi, a white supremacist. August 12, 2017, Heather Heyer lost her life. Now, you may not recall the circumstances. It was in regards to the white nationalists marching on the street of West Virginia. or was it Charlottesville, Virginia, rather? And there were anti-protests against the march. It was a tense situation in the midst of the 21st century. You have individuals who are bold enough, racist enough to walk the street of America to spread the message of hate. Now, in any society, you will have those type of individuals. In fact, that's why no matter which era you live in, no matter which country you live in, you study the history of the country, you would notice that there are always bad elements, there are always bad people, there are always criminals, because society has all that. When that happened, that particular tragedy of the August 2017, that Heather Heyer lost her life, the President of the United States was interviewed, and he defended the white nationalists by saying there are good people on both sides. Well, every time that comes, to me it's always amusing to hear the defense that's put up by some Republicans, but it is almost impossible to understand why demanding those Republicans to say something matter. In fact, in an article published on Washington Post, a few people who were interviewed said, we are fine with what Trump tweeted. That's the reason a few individuals said, that's the reason I voted for him. Those are not people on the fringe. Those are not just a few individuals who happen to feel that way. Those represent the Republican Party, who Donald Trump did not all of a sudden preach a sermon of hate and those people become the way they are. Donald Trump did not all of a sudden preach a message of white nationalism, of white supremacy, and those people suddenly became what they're expressing. They have always been that way. I explained that in the program on Saturdays, which is the program during which we discuss controversial issues. And saying over and over and over, the Republican Party is a haven for racists, is a haven of racists. On August 21st, that's a few days after Heather Heyer has been killed by a white supremacist, I wrote and published this article, which, by the way, you can find on the peoplebranch.org. If you head to the peoplebranch.org, you can search for particular topic of interest. Now, since we're talking about racism, you can either search for racism article, or you can search for the particular article that I'm referring to here, which is the first one is "Hatred is not a right. And the other one, which is related to the conversation today, is the Republican Party is a haven for racists. Now, on the hatred is not a right, I wrote the following. I'm not going to read the whole article for you, but I started that way. Most Republicans, supporters and legislators alike, are racist, prejudiced, and or discriminate against minority in general, blacks in particular. The upcoming article elaborates and provides irrefutable proofs of such. That's the article I mentioned later, that the Republican Party is a haven for racists. This article, the excerpt that I'm reading now, is August 21st, 2017. The article referred to in this one was published on August 24th, 2017. And the article continues, so it did not surprise me a bit that the president on his visit declared that some white supremacists and KKK members are very fine people. Much less surprising was it that most Republican supporters questioned whether both the protesters and the anti-protesters shared the blame for the tragedies which occurred on Saturday, August 12, 2017 in Charlottesville. The gist of which is a white supremacist, James Alex Fields, rammed a car into a crowd of anti-protesters, killing one person, the 32-year-old Heather Heyer, and injuring 19 others. Are both sides to blame for the tragedies? The President of the United States seemed to think so. Now, on the surface, whenever there is turmoil in any country, everyone always looks to the leader for solution, to appease the citizen of the country, to call for calm, to say words of reconciliation. But in the case of Donald Trump, no one can deny the fact that before Donald Trump even became president, he began his campaign on the premise of dividing our country. So let me read another excerpt, well, actually an excerpt from the other article, and then we come back to make an important point, because it seems that whenever we talk about race relation in America, as I always point out, it is a very difficult topic to talk about. It is a very difficult issue to resolve. And the reason is really quite simple. As we witnessing millions of Republicans, constituents and legislators alike dancing around a simple issue like this, condemning racism, but they dancing around the issue. Go figure that. But at the same time that there are also millions of other whites, who before it even happened, or before Trump even blurted out that tweet, knew Trump is a scumbag, is a sleazebag, is not fit to be president of the United States. And we have had that situation for the longest. And I mentioned before, I mention it again. Even during slavery, the country has always been divided that way. You have whites who would do anything and everything to keep slavery, and those usually are the ones that always portray themselves as having ethical, having high ethics, high level of morality, being Christian. Those are usually the type of people who are like that. That's the irony of the whole thing. The people who scream the loudest to have ethics, to be Christian, to have moral, high level of morality rather, those are usually the people doing the worst thing to society. They're the one that encourage evil in our society. Those are the very people. And it's not just a statement. During the time that, and I encourage you to go to People Branch YouTube channel, because during the time that I was dissecting the period of slavery, and I showed to you, proved to you that those very individuals that on Sunday woke up, went to church, praising God, and feeling themselves as being Christian, of being holy, of sanctified, they're the same people who are doing the most heinous, the most inhuman thing in life. That's nothing new, and to me that never leaves my thinking when you're dealing with any individual in life. That's why I said, give me 5 minutes with any white individual, I can tell you whether that person is racist or not, because I don't need the person to tell me I'm not racist or I'm racist, because the individual, we do things based on the way that we feel about our environment, about other people, and that no matter how much we try to hide it, it comes out. That's just the way it is. We cannot hide who we are for long. That's why you may recall during the 2016 presidential election, when Kellyanne was hired to rein in on Trump behavior, she could do that for just a little while, because Trump has to come out and show exactly who he is. We just, as a human being, we just cannot hide who we are for too long. Now let me read to you an excerpt of the other article that says the Republican Party is a haven for racists. Once again, you can find those articles, those publications on the peoplebranch.org. If you go to peoplebranch.org, you can either search for the article directly, or you can just search for the words racism, racist, Republican Party, and so on. Now, here's an excerpt from an article published on August 24th, 2017. The Republican Party is a haven for racists. There was a time when the Republican Party stood for equality, justice, diversity, and inclusion. It opposed the Ku Klux Klan and everything its existence stood for. Today, the Republican Party is a haven for racists, bigots, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists. It didn't begin with Charlottesville. It didn't happen overnight, and it was not a mistake. Republican legislators in Washington, Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, and company, have deliberately created the environment which gave rise to the fringe element of society. Donald Trump didn't happen in a vacuum. By any analysis, the Republican Party gave birth to the likes of Donald Trump. It should not surprise anyone why it is so difficult for the GOP to abandon the only child they have raised to become the standard bearer of the party. And that was expressed beautifully, and that was written 2 years ago. It should not surprise anyone why it is so difficult for the GOP to abandon the only child they have raised to become the standard bearer of the party. Now, as I mentioned many times in this program, everybody is very quick to point fingers to Donald Trump because he has the biggest mouth. He has a loud mouth, in this case a loud tweet, and a huge Twitter account. So it's easy. Just point fingers, and the Republican legislators in Washington, people like Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, now Jim Jordan will replace Paul Ryan, Mark Meadow. I mean, the whole gang, they're very happy when everybody's pointing fingers on Trump. The whole country is pointing fingers on Trump. But think about it for a moment. When you hear people like Graham dancing around the issue, not condemning the tweet, not condemning Trump, and speaking in general, should aim higher, should do better, really, who is he talking to? But most importantly, when you hear most Republicans coming and doing those stands around the issue, it's funny to me, amusing, and the reason is simple. I do not believe those Republicans even think that shouldn't have said that, should apologize, as his supporters say. That's the reason I voted for him. It wasn't an individual or two individuals. That's the reason I voted for him, because he's a racist, because he talks like a racist, because he defends racism. That's the reason I voted for him. So I'm not sure that Democrats, independent or anybody else, even in the Republican Party, who still have a shred of decency, I'm not even sure I understand why they so gung-ho about Donald Trump apologizing. They so gung-ho about the Republican legislators condemn what Trump said in the tweet. The reason I find it funny is because those same individuals, they have been nurturing that very behavior for a very long time. Donald Trump happened to be the individual today, but this is not something new. During the Obama tenure, for the whole 8 years, in fact, it started really on a very bad note. You may not recall the first State of the Union address. The Republican legislators stood in the back of the room while the president was delivering a speech and say, "You lied." It never happened because that time is for the president and for the president only. It's not an interview, it's not a conference, it's just a delivery of a message. Now granted, at that time John McCain was there and condemned it, and a few people joined him. in condemning that legislation. But that tells you that Republican Party in general did happen with Donald Trump. The Republican, when I wrote the Republican Party is a haven for racists, yes, I got a lot of pushback. People say, well, it's not all Republican. I acknowledge that the fact. Most Republicans, you're absolutely right. And when I wrote it in general, and I always make provision for the exception. So it is absolutely true. It's not all Republican. It's most Republicans. But it's the Republican Party is a haven of racists and a haven for racists. Those people today are telling you exactly that. That's the reason we voted for Trump. What the hell are you talking about? We love what he's saying about those people. So the reason it's so difficult is because you always have whites who understand society cannot be better unless we all learn to live to coexist. But you also have millions of whites who are already on the side of being racist, bigots, white supremacists, KKK, and that has always been the case. And as we explained in great detail during the expose on slavery, there were millions of whites who fought against slavery. And I gave example of some whites who lost their lives fighting against slavery. But at the same time, there were also millions of others who fought to keep slavery around. The Civil War did not happen because the citizens of the country decide we should have a war, but because rather the people who wanted to keep slavery around say, over my dead body. Those were the Christian conservative. Those were the Christian conservative people who went to church, give a semblance of being Christian. Maybe the word Christian doesn't mean anything to those individuals. Maybe they don't grasp the word Christianity. They should read the Bible someday. So yes, there were always those type of people in this country, and watch out especially for those who pretend to have some sort of ethics, some sort of morality. Watch out for those. In general, they are the one committing the worst crime, acting evil. And that's the funny thing. And I gave you example of how Republicans want to take the bullhorn and claim to be patriot, and yet they always the one selling the country to the highest leader. Democrats, on the other hand, who believe that we should be patriot, they don't use a bullhorn, and yet they prove every opportunity that that's exactly what they are, patriots. We're not talking about that today, but I did give plenty of such examples. In fact, I gave you 3 very important examples of Democrat candidates for the presidency of the United States who were approached by Russia to get help, and they refused the help in three separate occasions. Not 3 candidates in one election, 3 separate elections, and the time frame also differ, which means no matter which time frame you take, when you have a Democrat running for the presidency of the United States, that individual recognizes that its loyalty is to the American people, is to the Constitution. So in 3 different occasions, they were approached by Russia and they said thanks, but no thanks. what happened the first time Russia approached the Republicans. So you see, people who always have a bullhorn in their hand and claiming to be usually are not. So to me personally, it's the discussion about asking Trump to apologize, the discussion about interviewing the Republican to condemn Donald Trump is funny. They all on board because they all identify with Donald Trump. They all feel the same way. Donald Trump happened to have a big mouth and blurting it out, but that's the most Republican legislators and constituents feel. So why would they apologize for it? Most Republican legislators and constituents are racist. It's difficult for people to understand, to acknowledge it, because there is always going to be a pushback saying, no, that's not the case. It is the case, because time and again, every opportunity that comes to show they are not, they prove to be. I'm not sure why we're dancing around the issue. In order to solve a problem, first the problem has to be acknowledged. And the problem today is the Republican Party is a haven of racist and a haven for racist. It ought to be recognized in order to understand how to fix the problem. Donald Trump has a big mouth, he talks, and that's why all the Republicans, they love the idea of having Donald Trump as their leader, because he expresses himself the way that they feel, and he can take the hit. So they hide behind Donald Trump to do all kind of racist, pass racist legislation, policies, laws, while we all looking at Donald Trump. They're doing all that. During the Donald Trump administration, has placed in the federal benches judges who are non-racist. So the idea that Donald sent a tweet and everybody is up in arms and asking to condemn, yes, the Democrat can pass any resolution to condemn Donald Trump to it. Asking the Republican to do that is useless, because in public they feel pressured to say something. As you saw, Lindsey Graham on Fox, he never condemned Donald Trump. He never did. They gave him chances after chances to do so, but he never did. The Republican Party is a haven of racists and for racists. That ought to help in order to find a way to change that. But dancing around the issue as if that's not the case, there is no solution if a problem is not recognized. If you go to a doctor and the doctor cannot figure out what you're suffering of, cannot offer you a cure, could be the best doctor in the world, the first thing that ought to be done is to find out what you suffer of, and of course the next thing is to find out what's causing it. The Republican Party is suffering of racism. That ought to be acknowledged. Not some Republican, most Republicans. And that's the part that ought to be understood and acknowledged. Donald Trump did not sit in the Oval Office because some Republicans voted him in office. And that's where we differ, because common sense is important in order to be able to solve problem in society. Donald Trump does not sit in the Oval Office because he was voted in there by some Republicans. Most of those people who hiding behind being Christian, evangelicals, having a character, having ethics, having, well, being sense. All of those people went to the poll and voted in office the vilest individual, a crook, a criminal, a scoundrel, a sleazebag, a scumbag. That's what we have in the Oval Office. Now, they voted him in office. Why do you think there's such difficulty condemning what he's saying? It's because that's exactly the same way that they feel. So they're not going to say it out loud because they don't have the courage, but they're not going to say what he said is wrong either. That's why you see them dancing around that issue. That's why I think it's a futile exercise for Democrats to look to Republican legislators to condemn Donald Trump. That's what they are. Donald Trump happened to be expressing exactly the way that they feel. Think about it as a bunch of children sitting in the back room giggling because their parents are doing exactly what they wish their parents would do. They think it's funny. The idea of looking for Republicans to condemn Republican legislators, to condemn Donald Trump, is a joke. The Republican legislators are not condemn Donald Trump because they too feel exactly the same way. They too are racist, and the Republican constituents say, that's why we voted for him. Ignorance, they say, is the biggest threat to any democracy. Indeed, it is. Plato, a Greek philosopher born in 427 BC, said that ignorance is the root and stem of all evil. Today, members in the Republican Party wear ignorance as a badge of honor, while the rest of the country watch powerless the destruction of a country which was once the envy of the world. The media is the enemy of the country, said Donald Trump. The Democrat legislators are obstructionists for not going along with everything the president wants. The Department of Justice is biased for investigating corruption in the Trump administration. This is the United States of America. Any question? Donald Trump is wrong to call the media the enemy of the people. Throughout history, dictators, authoritarians have always tried to They legitimize the media in order to get away with corruption, scandal, and yes, even abuse. Adolf Hitler did exactly the same thing in 1933, accusing the media of fabrication. Journalists are not in the business of fairness. Our business, our only business, is to be objective. It is our duty to hold Trump and every administration accountable. Today is urgent. It is necessary. It is critical. Our very freedom depends on it. How did we get there? How did we get to this point? As I mentioned, it didn't start with Donald Trump. While it's easier to point finger to one individual and say that individual is responsible. Now, don't get me wrong. The President of the United States has a lot of influence, a lot of impact. When the President says something or tweets something, it has weight. It's not just me tweeting something and everybody ignores it. But when the President of the United States says, tweets something, that's why everybody talks about it, because it carries weight. Society cannot get better if we, this generation, continue to condone what those leaders are doing. But I realize it's a difficult thing to, because it used to be a time when we used to bash politicians, but at the very least have this level of comfort that we people are smarter. But that's no longer the case. We know that because we've been watching this erosion especially in the Republican Party. Now, Republicans like to bash Democrats for all kind of things. Now, I'm not talking about policies. I'm not talking about legislation, because there's a big difference whether you like a policy or not. For instance, most of the people who bash Obama, when you listen to the conversation, they bash Obama because they didn't like Obama personally, because they're racist, they're bigots. Now, in the beginning, of course, like in any political environment where each party is trying to score a point, then the Republican Party used to go after, well, Obamacare being bad, although it was blatant lie to the constituent. Now, if someone, and that's where Democrats differ from Republicans, in every aspect, no matter what topic that you take, Democrats tell you exactly what is. You may not like it, and that's where we're talking about divergence of opinion. You may not like it, you may prefer something else. But Republicans do not even give you, your Republican legislators, they do not even give you the option of liking or not liking something, because they lied to you. And I provide you proof after proof that's the case. Now, since we're not talking about that particular topic, I'm not going to try to digress to that to give you proof. If you've been watching this program, or I encourage you to watch previous that we made, and if this particular topic comes up, you would notice that I provide you example of search. So I don't say anything just for the sake of saying it. Your Republican legislators lie to you about what they're doing. which you like because for some reason Republican constituents like to be lied to. Democrats, on the other hand, the Democrat legislators, they tell their constituents exactly what they're doing. Now, Republicans may not like it, they call it whatever they want. So they're discussing the conversation that I always have with my fellow Republicans is this. What exactly don't you like? You like truth or you don't like what Democrats do? There is a big difference because Democrats tell the constituent what they need to do, which you may not like. That's your prerogative, and that's good for any democracy. There is nothing wrong with that. But your Republican legislators lie to you about everything that they say they're going to do. But in a sense, what they do is actually different, is hurtful, is harmful to you. And I gave those examples, not just saying those words. I gave those examples before to show you that it's a big, Republican legislators say this. Now you look at their legislation, their policies, and you automatically come to this conclusion. That's not what they said. And that's the baffling part. The constituents continue to vote those same people in office. So in other words, they like to be lied to. But in matter of this race relation, in matter of racism, all those things that are going on, reignited with the Trump tweet, how did we get there? Now, in the article published on August 24th, 2017, the Republican Party is a haven for racists, is an excerpt. Actually, the title is, How Did You Get There? The answer is as simple as the implication of the question is complex. From Barry Goldwater, GOP nominee in the 1964 presidential election, to Donald Trump, GOP nominee in the 2016 presidential election, everyone in the Republican Party is responsible. The bulk of the blame lays now at the front door, at the doorstep of Fox Opinion, known and referred to by most as Fox News. Before Donald Trump, there was Barry Goldwater, who did not hide his disdain for blacks and did everything to sideline them. There was Ronald Reagan, who coined the welfare expression, a derogatory term to refer to blacks in general. Supported the apartheid, I guess, the policies of racial segregation under a system of legislation in South Africa. He cut funding for all education programs designed to help minorities obtain trade education to better their lives. Mr. Reagan instead channeled the money to building more prison, more jail. Yes, most Republicans, emphasis on most, are racist and harbor deep feeling of prejudice towards blacks in general. Of course, most Republicans, except for the white supremacists, perhaps, would deny that. However, there is no lack of example to support the argument. The Republican racist tendency is reflected in most everything they do. Yes, more Republicans are responsible for the problem of racism in the United States of America. But at the doorstep of Fox Opinion, known and referred to by most As Fox News lie the roots of racism, discrimination, and prejudice in the United States of America.
In 1996, a small network by the name of Fox News was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the greatest threat to our democracy, constantly bombarding the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies presented to its audience as news. Fox has created an army of full ignorance. According to a survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. To keep millions of people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore.
How did we get there? Now, as most Republicans are racist, there are plenty of Democrats who are racist as well. So the problem is our society confronts is not just Donald Trump, the President of the United States, promoting racism, promoting hatred, but it's the whole Republican Party, legislators and constituents alike, who seem to be fine, go along with it, in fact promoting it, happy that it's happening. They say that's why we voted for him. As I mentioned earlier, Donald Trump president with just a few people or a few racists, a few individuals who voted him in office. Millions of people went to the poll. Those very individuals you meet, you know, your neighbor, they say they're Christian, they say they have high level of morality. They can give you a list of things that makes them good people, and yet they didn't have any qualm to vote Donald Trump in office. There, but how do we solve that problem? That is a story for another program. Join me tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. when we continue the conversation about how do we rid our society of this plague. Of course, we will continue the reading of the Mueller report. If you have a particular topic you would like us to talk about, let us know. We will research it. We will discuss it right here on the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. In the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Hope you join again tomorrow. Good day.